What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Coach and the Couch Potato. 3 months. It just seems wild every time.
Yep.
As always, I am Jeremy, the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. Been a busy week for you, sir, but how goes it?
Yeah, man, it's been a good week. We're on spring break this week, so it was a good time. Got to chill a little bit today. I got to spend some one-on-one time with the 9-month-old, so that was great. But yeah, man, good break so far. I got to get back to work. State testing coming up, so that's that, man. How you doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Got to hang out with the niece and nephew yesterday. That's
There we
always a
go.
good time. And getting ready for a banger of a sports week, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, what we should be watching. This should be the NCAA Women's Final Four in a way tonight, and instead it's the Elite Eight games.
I know. It's crazy.
Pretty stoked for that.
Yeah.
Go Tigers. Go Tigers. Go Huskies.
Yeah.
And then, as you can see in the top corner, we are doing our Mount Rushmore at the end of professional wrestlers. It's Wrestlemania week.
It's crazy.
And that's a homage to Marionaire Jeff Harriman, a.k.a. Bobby Kennedy. It's a little nostalgia, so that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be great.
A couple of things we want to hit on first, though. Excuse me. A crazy weekend for the Buckeyes. We'll start there before we get into the really good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the little trip down 23 to 315 that Coach took on Thursday.
Yeah.
It was a massive recruiting weekend as far as on-campus visits go anyway.
Yeah.
Lots of big names, lots of ground made up. That could be a whole episode, and we'll let those dominoes fall. But there were a ton. But 4 commitments over 3 days.
It's crazy.
It seems like has been par for the course since we started this shindig that Ohio State news doesn't come in bits.
No.
It comes in loafs. So, yeah, four recruits. And we're going to address the elephant in the room that's not official, so we're not going to really dive into it yet. Sounds like we're going to have a running backs coach by the end of tonight, tomorrow. We'll dive into that next week. But all I will say is y'all are going to love this man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he gets bonus points for, even though I'm cutting sweets out of my life, he gets bonus points for discussing the greatest store packaged chocolate chip cookie ever. We'll dive into that when the hire becomes official.
Yeah.
So these 4 commits, 3 defenders, 1 wide receiver. Excuse me. We'll dive into the wide receiver first because that can kind of couple. We did have a decommit last week too.
Yep.
Javen Boggs, super talented kid. But when you look at the wide receiver recruiting and the way it's tracking, unfortunately it happens. I think there's some really big fish out there and there's a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
So Des Jones committed on Saturday night, 4-star. I'm going to call him a slot wide receiver from DePaul Catholic in Wayne, New Jersey.
Yeah.
6 foot 180. I'm not the film guy, obviously. That's normally you, but I did watch his film because I was real curious because he's kind of one of those guys. His commitment came out of nowhere.
It really did. Really did.
This kid's got wiggle.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely got wiggle. And like you said, his commitment came out of nowhere. Real quick to touch on Boggs, I love that guy. I thought Boggs was a stud. I thought he was a very, overlooked recruit. So I was excited about having him in the class. And then I saw that he put out a tweet. I don't know if he deleted it or not, but he said, go where you're needed, not wanted. And so that let me know, playing time, playing early was something that he really wanted. And obviously when you come to Ohio State as a receiver, as a skill position guy, unless you're a generational talent, like we're going to talk about here soon, your playing time as a freshman, it's going to be it's not going to come by very easy. By the end of the season, you'll get some tick if you're really that guy. But you might have to sit for a year or two. Even Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't really get to play until the end of the season, his freshman year. So it sucks to see him go. But this guy we got from New Jersey, Des Jones, like you said, 6 foot, 180. He's a true slot receiver. And I love that. I love with who we've received commitments from. I love that the staff is going after scheme and not stars. Like I love that. I love that they're trying to fit in the actual pieces to what we need offensively and defensively. And I think this guy fits one of those major needs in the slot. We were just talking about before we got on the air, he reminds me of KJ Hill. He's not like a true burner, but he's a reliable target. Like you said, he's got wiggle. For a high school athlete, he is a very polished route runner. That was one of the things that I was so impressed with. His aggressive cuts in and out of breaks lets me know that he's, being coached up well there at DePaul Catholic. I think, that program has always produced some good talent. So I love seeing that. That's one of the things I always look for in a receiver is the route running. If you're not one of those just freak athletes, and this guy is a pretty elite, as a high school player, elite route runner for where he's at right now. And obviously when he gets to Ohio State, that's only going to be taken to another level. So I really like this guy. And like you said, he was a surprise. He wasn't on my radar at all. And so when I saw that commitment come up, I was, I had to do some digging, and I think this guy he's a dog, and you got to be a dog to play in a slot.
Yeah. And that's a position that it's going to get real interesting to follow. I think 4 is probably the number right now. And again, I think that there are some real big fish coming to that
Real
room.
big fish.
So then last night we got another surprise. Jones's teammate, Deshaun Stewart,
yeah,
4-star safety. Also, obviously Wayne, New Jersey, DePaul Catholic, 6'2", 185, listed as a safety. But the thing that jumped out to me is that this was kind of a combo recruitment between OG Walt and Coach G.
Yeah.
So I think, this could be a hybrid kid, play some slot corner maybe. And that room is recruiting wise is bananas.
It is right now, man.
The number that all of the guys out there who know way more than we do, the Will Fongs, the Berms, the Austin Wards, they're all saying 8 DBs total.
Wow.
And I think we're up to like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And they're all studs.
They're all pretty
good. There's a potential decommit in there too, I think. But when you look at what's left on the board, again, it's cutthroat. You gotta want to be there. You gotta understand, what's earned and not given.
Absolutely.
And so we'll see what happens in that room. But again, there are some absolute studs already committed, and there are a lot of studs still on the board. What do you see in Stewart?
Oh, dude, I love this guy's film. There's nothing that gets me more like pumped up for football than seeing a defensive back, especially a corner, who is a physical tackler. I mean, out in space, a lot of people think when they play cornerback, you got to be like, Coach Prime, and it's all about the flash and Jalen Ramsey. No, I want the Antoine Winfields of the world out at corner that, hey, if we're going to be playing cover 2 and you throw a bubble screen out here, I'm knocking somebody's block off. And that's this guy. Like this guy, he's got a ton of position versatility. If you watch his film, if you get on YouTube and look up his highlights, you're going to see him line up at outside corner. You're going to see him line up in the slot over number 2, and you're going to see him line up back at safety as well. So he's already 185 pounds, and he looks every bit of it. And so this is a guy that when he gets to college, they project that he's going to get bigger. And I think that versatility that he provides to be able to play in the slot and back out at safety is something that they are really valuing. You saw with the guy we signed this past class from Arizona. What was his name? Just forgot his name quick.
Miles Lockhart.
Miles Lockhart. you saw that with him as well, like a true slot defender. And I think this guy fits that mold. Like I said, is very physical tackler. He's got good feet. He can be stiff in the hips at times, but man, this kid, I'm telling you, like the projections for this kid, I think he could be a really, really, really good player for us. And I just love how physical he is. And the defensive back room, man, I can tell you right now, Coach G and OG Walt, they want dogs. And we'll talk about that later, but they want some freaking dogs that got a little chippiness to them. And this dude's got a chip on the shoulder. I don't know who made him mad, but when he plays physical, and he lets you know about it. So I'm excited about this kid. It's another kid that I didn't really know too much about. I was so fixated on the guys that we already have, in that room, and I wasn't really like projecting out of who we could get other than like the Trey McNutts, and what's the guy's name, Fahim Deline, or those guys. Like, those were the guys I was really looking at. I didn't really look at Deshaun Stewart, but this kid, he's in that mold as well. So he's a stud, man. I'm excited and I'm glad we got him, man. Another sound physical tackler to add to the secondary.
Well, and Wisconsin suffered a decommit of a safety over the weekend, and it sounds like that is going to be in our favor. And that's a guy who underlooked. I mean,
dude, I love that kid.
Again, we'll get there, as it comes. I hate to throw the teasers out there, but it's just one of those things that there's so many moving parts right now.
Yep.
We could be looking at an April and May of just fireworks. 11 Warriors red banners for days. So Friday night, this one, if you follow the crystal balls, the RPMs, those type of things at all, was expected, but not necessarily now. London Merritt. 6'2", 250 D lineman, most likely a rush guy, a DN. Out of Georgia, but he's going to play his senior year at IMG. So, again, a kid who's going to get a year of being away from home, of having structure in his life. And at that point, football being your job.
Yep.
Ranked as the number 10 D lineman in the country. Anytime you're getting these guys who are top 10 in their position groups, you're getting more than just really good football players. You're getting guys that project to be studs. Obviously projections don't always work. This kid's got pretty good hips already.
Yeah, he does.
Which I think is why he kind of projects on the rush side of life. But again, I punt to you on that. What do you see in London Merritt?
Yeah, well, I originally thought the same exact thing, and then I put on his film, and I see that the team that he was playing for had him lined up inside as a 3 technique the majority of the time. And with him being such and I say this as a person who's 5'7", like I'm going to call somebody who's 6'2" short. That's just crazy. But I see somebody who, for a defensive lineman, is on the shorter side, and he's got a frame. I could see him as a strong side defensive end, but he's also got the athleticism to be the weak side defensive end and do a lot of things because like you said, he's got really good hips. And we'll talk about that when we get into some of the practice talk of some of the things that Coach Knowles has been wanting to do. And I think this guy fits that, kind of positionless player. Like when he gets there, he's going to get bigger. You'll see him probably get up into that 265, 270 range when he's here. So now you're talking about a guy who could be on the edge and in rush packages be on the inside as well. So I think this guy is a stud. He lived in the backfield. I mean, on his film, like it was after a couple minutes, you just want to turn it off because it's like, okay, I know what this guy's going to do. He's going to get his hands on, he's going to get upfield, and he's going to get a tackle for loss. So just adding to that room, adding to that depth moving forward. Like I'm excited about this guy, and it's goes to show that Coach J still got it, man. He's still got it. He's still got a lot left in the tank, and to go to Georgia. And I know he's going to be at IMG, but to go get a guy like this out of the state of Georgia to commit to Ohio State, that's big because Georgia, as you know, is a recruiting hotbed. I was listening to a podcast and somebody was saying you could just recruit Gwinnett County and you would be fine for the rest of your coaching career. So to go get this guy out of Georgia is a pretty big deal.
I mean, you could also recruit Dade County and be fine, but the school that's in Dade County doesn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of my weekly Miami Hurricanes jab, I think I may have found a team with poorer attendance than the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah.
And that's the Oakland Athletics.
Oh.
Watching them over the weekend play the Guardians, and I think they had like 5,000 people. And
That's
I'm like,
brutal.
I go, that's Miami 2.0.
Yeah.
So speaking of the state of Florida, though, with Miami, the fourth recruit, this is one we've all been waiting on.
Yeah.
When James Laurinaitis got the job, everybody's like, can he recruit?
Yeah.
And almost immediately, Ohio State almost came out of nowhere to become a contender with TJ Alford. No relation to Benedict Alford. So Alford is a 6'2", 210 linebacker from Vero Beach, Florida. Not an area Ohio State has ever really hit massively. And a school that it sounds like has not ever, I mean, they've had some really good players, but not to this level.
Yeah.
I watched this kid get off the golf cart on his announcement, and I'm like, that's a grown man.
Yeah.
So he's ranked as the number 8 linebacker in the country. And this is a recruitment that you can chalk up to James Laurinaitis.
Absolutely.
And now when he got on campus, he did talk to Coach Knowles a lot, he said, and just fell in love. He was super, super well spoken. His coach spoke so highly of him, and that always goes so far with me.
Yeah.
You can always tell when these guys do these press conferences, the coaches that are just there to get it done and over with, and the coaches that truly are there for the kid and to let the kid have their moment.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with that. Aside from this kid just being an all-around stud, what does he bring to the table?
Yeah, no, you're right. He is an all-around stud. He gives me a lot of Arvell Reese vibes. Like everybody saw that picture of Arvell Reese this offseason. He was like 240 pounds and just straight yoked. Like this guy has the frame to be, a 230 to 240 pound Mike linebacker, but he also has the athleticism to be an absolute stud as a will linebacker and in the jack position as well. Super long arms. I mean, like really extremely long arms. I mean, this guy, like watching his film, like it's just crazy how long his arms are. He's just a freak athlete. He's more of a see ball, get ball guy right now. And I love that because that way when he gets on campus, Coach Laurinaitis can really mold him into being a true type of read and react type linebacker, or they can just play off his athleticism and just let him go be a dude. Like this guy has all the traits to be either a Mike or a Will. I don't know where they project him at, but to add somebody like this to that room, I think you can see that Coach Knowles has a type when it comes to linebacker, and he just wants freak athletes. And that's just what he wants.
Breaking news. Carlos Lachlan is Ohio State's running backs coach officially.
There we go.
I've been keeping an eye on it.
Yeah.
Obviously we weren't totally ready for that. We will dive more into that next week. But for those that haven't been following it, the running backs coach search has Ohio State's got a lot of people raises.
Yeah, a lot.
And that's okay. That's okay. Because everything happens for a reason.
Look at the ticker. I was ready. I
love it. So Coach Lachlan comes from Oregon.
Yeah.
The thing I like about the guy, I'll share the video to our Facebook and our socials. This guy is tough. He doesn't have an extensive big time coaching background.
No.
But I don't think that's a bad thing in this situation because who better to get molded by than Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, Hartline, who arguably became like the fastest rising position coach outside of maybe like Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah.
This guy is a tough love guy. I believe, I haven't actually ever confirmed it, he was a corrections officer at one point.
Yeah. Oh, you can tell too.
Yeah. So what I was saying earlier, there's a line out there where he's talking about kids that transfer because he's making them earn it.
Yeah.
And he referred to them as soft batch cookies. Y'all know that we are all about the portal because we're all about the players.
Yeah.
Now, there's times guys transfer because it's too hard.
Yep.
Let's be honest. It happens in college football. It happens in travel baseball. It happens in high school sports now. Coach Slate's too hard on me. I'm going to transfer from Findlay to, not to throw shade at anybody, but let's just go Van Loo.
Yeah.
Somebody, and again, that's not a knock on Van Loo. That'd be, or, you transfer from IMG to where Arch Manning played school, I mean, so we'll dive into that more, but I mean, obviously, we've done a little bit of digging into him and coach speak. What do you see when you hear him talk?
Man, he's definitely a tough love guy, but the one thing that, and like you said, we'll dive into this more next week, but the one thing that stands out to me, like, he rose from the high school ranks, right? And that lets, like, for all the people that don't think high school coaches know what they're talking about a lot of the times, this is a guy who 5, 6, 7 years ago was an offensive coordinator at a high school, and he worked his way up and now is going to be the running back coach at Ohio State. I love the fact that Coach Day is not afraid to add people like that to the staff because the high school coach knows the kid typically the best. And when it comes to recruiting, it is extremely important to know the pulse of the kids that you are recruiting. So to get a guy who was a high school coach recently in this day and age, it is such an important piece to how well of a recruiter, how good of a recruiter this guy can be. Everywhere he's been, the running backs have been talented. Oregon's running game last year was one of the best in the country. Coach Lanning, that's something that he wants to make sure happens. So we'll dive into it more specifically, but I'm just excited for this guy. I think recruiting wise, he's going to be top notch. And I think you saw with some of the crystal balls that we got, some of the other recruiting outlets knew that this was for sure happening. And so I think he's going to be a home run hire when it comes to recruiting. And I also think, and I saw this on another, I don't want to take the credit for this. I saw it on another website. I don't want to take the credit for this, but it's so true. Players take on the identity of their coach. And when you've got somebody who is hard-nosed, tough love, has got his guns out all the time, and he's just about toughness, but he's also about loving the guys hard. The guys take that on. And so I'm excited for our running backs. I think our running backs are going to be in really good hands. Hopefully we can get him to stay around 3-4 years because he's a rising star in the coaching world. So excited about this guy. I really am, man. I'm excited for him.
Looks like it's a 2-year deal.
There we go.
And, the other caveat to it, honestly, anytime you can hamper now a conference rival, that doesn't sting. Dan Lanning is a dog.
He's a dog.
My man gives no cares what anybody thinks. So I'm sure this one stings a little bit. But as has been the trend, OSU comes out smelling like a rose again. Not a guy whose name was thrown out there, and reading between the lines on some of the things you see on socials and stuff the last week or so, there was the caveat out there that something's brewing behind the scenes that OSU doesn't want to get out. I mean, this dude just signed an extension last month.
I know.
But part of the reason it took until today, contract lingo, his buyout dropped by 50% today. So saves OSU some money.
Yeah.
We'll dive into that. Really, really, really excited for that. Speaking of really, 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 really exciting things, though, last Thursday, Coach ventured down to the WAC. Got to spend the day watching and taking in everything. So for this portion, I'm going to essentially punt to you and let you do your thing.
So it's I before we start talking about it, I want to give some perspective on, how much Ohio high school football means to Ohio State. It's pretty much an open door policy with them, and they've made that clear. Urban really hammered that home. Tress did as well. It's as simple as a text message to a certain coach, and hey, I want to come down for this spring practice. Okay, Coach Slate, give me the names that you want that are going to be with you, and we'll have stuff ready for you. And it's really that simple. So shout out to Coach Hinton, Coach Terwilliger. They're the ones that are really in charge of making sure the high school coaches are taken care of. But yeah, so I went down with the Finley staff. Kind of, even though I'm not going to be coaching there, one of the other coaches said was like the last hurrah, which I thought was like, that was stupid. But so yeah, we got to go down on Thursday, and it was good, man. It was good. The one thing that I love about going down to Ohio State practices is just the overall experience. Like I said, they really take care of the high school coaches. They've got a guy down there who's been working there forever. I cannot remember his name, but he's like a 6'8" black dude. I bet he's like in his 70s, and he is like the get back guy. So if there's a certain part of the field you're not allowed to be on, and he's on you. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but this dude has been there every time I've ever gone. And if you step on that red line, like he is like, hey, get behind that line. And so they've just got guys, people that take their job serious down there. So it's pretty cool. But, John Cooper was down there in his 80s, still wanting to be at football, talking to all the high school coaches. I met Vinnie Clark. Like I got to see Vinnie Clark, which was cool. One of my favorite Buckeyes of all time. And so got to meet Schlegel. He's a freaking monster. Like that dude is just like, he's all juice all the time. Like he says that on the radio and stuff, but that's just who he is. So that's just kind of a little bit of like what you get when you're down there. They really take care of you, but I really tried to spend my day with the defense. Obviously I'm a defensive guy, but when we went to the team sessions, I really focused on the offense, man. And there was the one thing I will say before we get into like standouts and quarterback and all that stuff, the level of competition that has been created at Ohio State, it mimics what Nick Saban was doing at Alabama. I mean, every position group is just loaded. And it's just like, oh my God, that dude stood out. And then you think like, gosh, he's like third on the depth chart right now. Like, I don't know if he's going to see the field. But that level of competition in the players feel it. They feel that kind of like, hey, I got to look over my shoulder a little bit because I got somebody behind me that's ready to play. So I love that sense of urgency and that sense of competition that is being created. So it was all juice, man. Like Coach Knowles, the riverboat gambler, was chewing people's heads off. I mean, that guy, he's got his glasses all the way down on his nose, and he's just watching, and you did something wrong, and he's like chewing you out. So it was just pretty cool to see, man, the environment, the overall atmosphere that is created right now by Coach Day. Like kudos to him. But as far as standouts are, I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to us, you probably saw a lot of people talk about practice last week and then the scrimmage on Saturday. So I'll start out defensively. CJ Hicks, I don't have words for his athleticism. Like, that dude is an elite blitzer. And I don't want to give this comparison because I feel like it's a very lazy comparison, but it's so true. I couldn't help but watch him and think of Micah Parsons. I couldn't get that thought out of my head. When he blitzes with reckless abandon, and he knows that I'm going to mess up that dude ahead of me. There was one specific play where he blitzed into the A gap, and our new transfer, Quinshawn Judkins, stepped up into that A gap to take him on. And it was the loudest hit I've heard in a very long time. I mean, loud. And Quinshawn got knocked back, and Quinshawn did a good job keeping his base, but he got knocked back into the quarterback, and he was so, like, CJ was so amped up about it, and Quinshawn couldn't do anything but, like, dap him up. Like, it was just one of those things. And then 2 plays later, he blitzes into the B gap this time, and then I don't know who was at running back, but he dipped underneath him and made him look silly and got a sack. Like, this dude is an elite blitzer, and I don't like to throw that term around loosely, but CJ Hicks, elite blitzer, and I don't know what their plans are with him, but he is going to do something big time for us this year. I can feel it. Like, that dude it was unreal. Like, to see him in action and just the way he was taking coaching and the way he was stepping up as a leader in between the team periods, it was pretty cool. Another guy that stood out to me, and these are names that you may not really hear about quite a bit, but Jaden Bonsu. Jaden Bonsu is taking advantage of his opportunities with Malik Hartford out right now because he had shoulder surgery. Bonsu's I believe he's from New Jersey as well.
He is.
We're talking about New Jersey guys. This is a kid who's from New Jersey, 4-star recruit, pretty decently recruited guy. He's a thumper. I mean, this dude, he is a very physical player. He's physically developed since last year, and he's taken advantage of his opportunities to be at safety. With the first group defense, it was him and Caleb Downs. And, Caleb Downs, I don't even need to say anything about him. It's just, he's scary. But Jaden Bonsu really stood out to me. His athleticism, his ability to come downhill and to get over top, I really enjoy seeing that. Another guy that stood out to me and I think is going to find a way to get on the field is Lorenzo Styles. Lorenzo Styles, I said it to you before we got on the podcast. Like, I think he's one of the top 13 to 14 players on our defense. I think he's that good. And it's crazy because he's going to be behind Jordan Hancock, and he's going to be behind IGB and Denzel Burke on the outside. So it's like, finding time to get on the field is going to be tough, but it's so good that he did redshirt last year because it gives him 2 more years of eligibility. I think he's going to be special. I loved his physicality, and I loved the way he played. And then on the defensive line, Caden McDonald. He's going to be a guy for us to add into that defensive line rotation. He was special, physical with his hands, won a lot of his one-on-ones. And so I was very excited to see that. Defensively, man, I don't know what Coach Knowles is doing. I don't want to give too much out because I don't want people to be like, oh, this is what Ohio State's doing. But I'll just say that you're seeing more of what we thought Coach Knowles would want to do. And it's pretty cool to see that he feels that good, that have all those pieces in place. And so it was just a fun defensive day. And you can see the offensive guys were getting pretty frustrated with what was going on. So that was pretty cool, man. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then obviously, we could talk about offense. I'll get into that in a second. But you got any questions about that? Like, it was just the overall experience, man. It's just so cool. It's just so cool
exciting. And I like to hear, that Bonsu is really making the most of that opportunity. That's a guy who, when we got him, that was a tight battle. I think that was a win over of, all schools, my favorite one to hate on besides the team up north, the team in Dade County. When I watched him in high school, I thought, man, this guy is like Headhunter, bring in the lumber, but it's good, and you can't just be that as a safety anymore.
No,
those
can't.
Days are done. So that's really cool.
You could see it, like, things are starting to click, and I'm one of those nosy coaches. Like, I really like to listen to the coach's coach, and so Bonsu was coming off the field and going straight to Coach G and asking good questions. And like that, when somebody can give you feedback from what they see on the field, because they're the ones out there and they can confidently relay that information to the coach, that lets me know that things up here are starting to slow down. And so like that was a huge thing. I just got goosebumps thinking about it. I love when players are able to do that, because at the end of the day, they're the ones out there. So when things slow down up here, everything else starts to speed up around them. So that was pretty cool.
That linebacker rotation has the potential to be frightening. I mean, and again, nobody on the Ohio State beat is going to throw anything extremely negative out about a guy.
No.
So like with offense, for example, we'll start. I'll ask you about a position we've talked about a lot because of a transfer in, and that's the tight end position.
Yeah.
One thing I did hear, I cannot remember who it was that said it, that, obviously is at practice daily.
Yeah.
We've talked the praises of Jelani Thurman,
Yeah.
and the feedback from this year is he needs to get better still.
Yeah.
So with the positives you're hearing about Kazmarek, NG, what did you see out of the tight end group to start?
It's another room, man, that the depth, like, you can tell there's a clear difference when we were watching the 11-on-11 periods, the confidence that G has when he goes out there versus the confidence that, a Jelani has when he goes out there when it comes to blocking. And I think that is what is really separating those two right now. I think the same thing with Will Kazmarek right now, too. I think he's a massive human being, like one of the biggest guys I've ever seen in my entire life. But I think, like, going from Ohio to Ohio State, there is a difference in the level of competition. So I think he's just at a place where things have to slow down up here, because he's a guy that is going to be he's a guy that's going to be able to play. I mean, I saw enough things to know, like, when it comes to blocking, like, he really enjoys doing that. So he's a guy that's going to be on the field. Bennett Christian is another guy who was really doing. 11 Warriors had a story on him out today. He did some really good things in the blocking game as well. So again, it's just a young and experienced group behind G. Scott. Jelani, I think his biggest attribute is going to be in the red zone as a receiving threat. There are times in practice where he was just unguardable, whether it was a linebacker on him, whether it was a slot. And then there was a clip that, that was on the internet, on one of the websites. Lincoln Keenholz throws one into the extremely tight window, and he throws it just where Jelani could get it and nobody else could. Well, Jelani's 6'7", so it's like it definitely, like, helps. So he's one of those guys athletically, like, it's going to be hard to keep him on the field. I could see what some of the people are saying, though, like, his blocking still needs to develop. He just doesn't look comfortable doing it yet. So, that's something that is going to come, though. But, like, when he's out split out at receiver, holy smokes. It's a mismatch nightmare. And so that was pretty cool to see. That's a room that there's a lot of question marks, but G. Scott's definitely the one that you can look at and be pretty confident. And that's kudos to that guy for sticking around for 5 years and really putting in the work. And you can see that it's starting to pay off for him.
Yeah, that's a guy that's embraced the process.
Yeah.
And I think, like I've said before, I follow his dad on Twitter, and his dad is a great follow.
Yeah.
Question marks, I mean, outside of the obvious, battles that have been talked about everywhere, it sounds like the O-line might slowly be hammering a 5.
Yeah.
You said that CJ made their lives not fun.
Yeah, he did.
But as far as, like, what you're seeing, though, how did they look?
Yeah, so it's interesting to see how they're doing the rotations. So the first group offensive line was actually not the first group. So it was technically the first group skill guys with the second group offensive line. And then the second group skill guys would come in with the first group offensive line. So that was interesting. I would love to know the why behind that. I really would. I think that would be interesting to know. But offensive line wise, you were seeing guys compete at a very high level. And the one thing I noticed so much about our offensive line, Justin Fry, and we said it on here before, he's got a type. I didn't see a fat offensive lineman. Like, they are all lean, athletic bodies. I was extremely impressed with Josh Simmons. I spoke with a player afterwards, and the comparison he made for Josh Simmons' athleticism, and that's just such a I don't even want to say it, but I just let you know how respected he is. They compared his athleticism to Trent Williams. If you know who Trent Williams is, he's arguably the greatest left tackle of all time, and he's a freak athlete. And, like, Josh Simmons has that type of athleticism that came from a player in that position group's mouth. Like, it didn't come from me. That was from an Ohio State player. So to hear those things, like, lets me know, like, whoa, like they've got some guys. Donovan Jackson's Donovan Jackson. I think he is who he is at this time. It was pretty cool to watch them during the 11-on-11 periods. The offensive line is just a family. Like, it is just like, and it's so cool to see that tight-knit bunch. When their group was done, they come straight, they come straight to the sideline, they get a drink, and they are all working together on what they saw. How do we get this better? What are they trying to do? Well, they were bringing CJ off here, so this is what I've got to do. Like, it was so cool to see that going on, and that lets me know, like, Coach Fry, as much heck as, Ohio State fans give him, he's built such a good culture that the kids feel confident enough to speak about those things with each other, and then to be able to go to Coach Fry with those things as well. The center position, I think Seth McLaughlin has that pretty much wrapped up. He just looks like a vet. The way he carries himself, he just got a lot of savvy to him. And Josh Fryer is another guy. I know he got a lot of crap last year, but Josh Fryer's taken Luke Montgomery under his wing. He's taken some of these younger, the Tegra Shabolas, taken him under the wing. After practice, Fryer grabbed Luke immediately before Luke came over to talk to us, and they worked for about 10 minutes on something that happened in like one of the very first team sessions in a pass pro situation. And like, those are the type of leaders that they have developed up front. And then Luke, Luke's been rolling with the first group, and it's fun to see his athleticism be put on full display. He got to go up against Kenyatta Jackson. He got to go up against Hero Canoe in one-on-ones, and it was a good matchup. Luke would win one, and they would win one, and Luke's really taking that, that leadership and that onus role on for his class, and not just for his class, but really as a vocal person throughout the team. Like, I just love the way the offensive line has realized, like, this is a young guy that we're trying to bring on, and they're all trying to make sure that he's successful. And if it's not him, then they're all trying to make sure that Tegra's successful. If it's not him, and then whoever the next guy is. So it's just so cool, man. I know we give the coaches a lot of crap and Coach Fry a lot of crap, but the way those guys take care of each other, man, it's awesome to see. There was one play specifically, they ran outside zone in a team session, and it was pretty cool. Everybody is outside zone, reach, rip, and run, and the offensive line blocked it almost perfectly. Luke took his guy to the sideline, and Travion Henderson put his foot in the ground, broke 80 yards for a touchdown. Nobody was touching him. Like, he outran everybody. And so the offensive line was pretty geeked about that during that session. So it's good to see, for those people who have questions about the offensive line, they're working. They are working, and they're trying to make sure they get this thing right, man. So in every group, you see those guys, they're getting their work in, and they're pushing each other. Side note, the Armstrong twins, there's no way they're freshmen. They're like 40-year-old men. Like, unreal. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. Like, scary. No fat on their bodies, just monsters. Like, they are huge human beings.
I bet mom and dad are glad they're not paying that grocery bill anymore.
Yeah.
That's cool to hear, because like, one of my favorite units ever of any position group at OSU is the 2014 Slobs. And the brotherhood that position group sounds like they have reminds me of that.
Yeah.
So, obviously I feel like running backs, it's pretty self-explanatory. Wide receivers, quarterbacks kind of go hand in hand.
Yep.
Obviously the wide receiver discussion, it's going to be the dead horse that gets beat until September. It is Jeremiah Smith. There's no other way to put it at this point.
Oh my gosh, man.
It's not often that a freshman comes in and is not only as advertised, but possibly better.
Dude.
You even heard Ryan Day stop himself the other day.
To slow himself down, man.
He's like, I don't want to go there. So you factor that in. There was the play at Student Appreciation Day.
Yeah.
Where Jeremiah makes a really good catch with Denzel Burke on him. Caleb Downs in the vicinity. Now that one, I do wonder that if in a game setting, if Caleb comes over and whacks him. But the thing that stood out to me on that real quick was Denzel Burke going to Twitter because
Yeah.
obviously Michigan fans and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this kid cooked Denzel Burke. Denzel
Yeah.
Burke's trash." Jeremiah Smith was the number one player in the country, guys.
Yeah. He's good.
And Denzel Burke took and he goes, iron sharpens iron. He goes, and Four's the real deal. So what'd you see out of quarterbacks and receivers?
Oh my gosh, man. First of all, I'll just get it out of the way. Jeremiah Smith, he is as advertised. I mean, the respect that he has from the defensive backs, he is about business. I mean, you don't see like he's got relationships with the guys, but when he's working, like he is working. And it's so cool to see those best players be your hardest workers. And he's always wanting to get better. That right after practice was over, he was already with one of the quarterbacks catching some extra balls. Like he is just about business. And to me, like that's a lot of that Marvin Harrison Jr. It's a lot of, the Garrett Wilson, the Chris Olaves, those type of guys who really, the Terry McLaurins, KJ Hills, who really put zone 6 to another level. That's how they were. And so Jeremiah Smith has definitely taken that on. You guys can get on Twitter and YouTube and see all the things that he's doing. He is as advertised. The routes that he runs, the strength of his hands, his physicality. That was so cool to see during the 7-on-7 and the team periods. And so I'll just get that one out of the way. Like he's as advertised. Emeka Egbuka is healthy. He is back to being who we always knew he was. He's got wiggle back. He's got a burst back. He lined up in the backfield a couple times. Like they are wanting to really expand with him. And I think because of the success and the emergence of J.J. Smith, I think now that allows you to be even more versatile with Emeka because you're going to have guys like Carnell on the outside. And Carnell was pretty quiet. He's just does what he does. I mean, he's what you expect. He was cooking some guys in one-on-ones. He was making plays when the ball was thrown to him. I don't think he's a real rah-rah guy. I think he's just a real quiet, I'm going to go to work and get the job done. Brandon Ennis was out. He was very limited in what he was able to do on Thursday. And Coach Day talked about that in their press conference. So we didn't get to really see a bunch of him. Bryson Rogers, that's a guy that we need to keep an eye on. Very special. He's a true slot receiver. You saw him in the scrimmage take one to the house. He's another guy that was in one-on-ones, really doing a good job. In the team periods, whenever the opportunity presented itself, he made some plays. The guy that I was the most impressed with, though, and I don't even know how much playing time he's going to get, was Keon Grays. When we were watching one-on-ones, he was unguardable. And the way that he is working, you can see that desperation in him to find a way to get on the field. And I respect that. I respect that he's going into year 3 and he's not jumped into the portal. I don't know what will happen after this spring, but you can definitely see that he's fighting for the opportunity. Zone 6 is the best. It's the best group in the country. There's just no words to put on it. Like they are just so talented. And to have that, and then to have the quarterback competition as well. The top 4 quarterbacks, there is not much separating them. Just going to be completely transparent about that. Devin Brown showed some arm strength and he showed some flashes, but he also showed some inconsistencies, overthrows, and things like that. That was another guy that after practice, he's sitting down with the offensive line. He was working with the center on their snaps and things like that. So Will Howard, though, and I think this is what's going to separate him from everybody else. But before we get to Will Howard, I'll talk about Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin, quickest release I've ever seen in my entire life. That kid is every bit of what he was hyped up to be. He's extremely accurate. He handles himself like a franchise quarterback. He's very quiet, doesn't say much. The second a play is done, he is immediately with Coach Kelly or Coach Day or Coach Hart talking about what can I do to get better and what can I do for this next series that I'm going to be in? What are we thinking about running? And that lets me know that he sees himself as starter ability. And I think he's got it. Do I think he's going to be the starter? I don't think so. But he's put himself in a discussion to be, in this competition. Will Howard, though, there was something different about him. The swagger that he has, the way that he carries himself. He carries himself like a true franchise quarterback. He's super calm in the pocket. And I know that was one thing that we used to get so frustrated with CJ Stroud about. But he is so calm. Like, you can tell he's done this for 4 years. Excuse me. You can tell he's done this for 4 years. Did he have some inconsistencies throwing the ball down the field? Yes, he did. But the one thing I think that is going to separate him, he's a gamer, and his legs are going to be the difference. And you cannot deny that. I think in the intermediate passing game and throwing the ball over the middle, he's very good. I think he's got to work on that accuracy throwing deep, and we saw that in practice. We saw that in the scrimmage as well. The difference is his pocket presence and his ability to run the football. I think that is what's going to win him the job over Julian, over Devin Brown, over LK. Lincoln Keenholz, another guy, man, he was through some dimes. Some throws I was just like, man, like it was so cool to see his arm strength improve so much already from the Missouri bowl game. So he's another guy that shouldn't be overlooked in that mix. Those top 4 guys are it's a good battle. And you talked about Denzel Berkman, iron sharpens iron. It's pretty cool to see like the culture that they've got in the brotherhood that they've got created. And then Aaron Nolan, he looks like a freshman. I think Aaron Nolan has a ton of talent, but he looked like a freshman that just graduated high school. I mean, you could tell there were some things that he needs to work on. The talent's there. He still makes some accurate throws, doesn't have the strongest arm, but I think his time, if he sticks around, I think his time will come. But those top 4 guys, man, I asked a lot of people down there what they thought, a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me. I've had conversations with a couple of the players that we knew, a couple of the walk-on guys. They were enamored with Julian saying. I mean, that's the one thing that they said. Hey, that Julian kid, he can rip it. Like, that's all they kept saying. And so I think, those top 4 guys, it's a real competition. And I don't think they're going to hand anything to Will Howard or Devin Brown. And I think LK and Julian Sayin have put themselves right into the mix. And I think at the end of the day, though, I think Will Howard will pull it out, man. I was just so impressed with his pocket presence and the way that he didn't freak out. And we need that veteran leadership, I think, on the offense. And so I was happy to see him lose his black stripe this weekend as well. And so, yeah, the quarterback competition was fun. It was fun to see. It was fun to see in 7-on-7 and team. And you can see it. Like, you can feel it. Like, they know, like, this throw matters. This rep matters. And so it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see.
That's awesome. That is an awesome, analytical point of view from something a lot of people don't get to experience. So, you being able to share that with everybody is fantastic.
And I will one more thing about the quarterbacks. Every single quarterback takes reps with the first team offensive line and the first team skill guys. So, I know we talked about it previously, but like, we don't know how they're going to do it up. Coach Day, Coach Kelly, I'm going to clap you guys up because the way that they've divvied the reps, everybody's getting reps with the first team. Whatever they decided that first team is, everybody's getting reps with them. So it's been it was pretty cool to see that in action. That was one of the things I really wanted to focus on. And so it was pretty cool to see, like, Lincoln got reps with the first team offensive line and the first team skill guys. Devin and even Air got reps with the first team. Like, everybody's getting reps with the first team offensive line and skill. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think that's a lesson learned from the Missouri game. I think you've got to, work on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, cool deal. Like we started last week, we kind of branched the Mount Rushmore segment out to make it a little fun. This is Wrestlemania week. I'm not gonna lie, it's the one time a year that I really pay attention to pro wrestling still. And right now they've got the company that owns UFC now owns the WWE.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Vince McMahon is gone. That's a whole nother story. He's a terrible piece of scum human being. So with that came, there's definitely a lot more. It's a throwback to when we were kids almost. So it's been really, really good. With The Rock,
Oh,
playing the ultimate bad guy.
yeah. Dude,
So
seeing the clips on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff,
yeah,
it's like it's taken me back, man. Like it really has. It's so cool.
I mean, my man's out here dropping F-bombs on Twitter and not caring.
Not caring.
So, with it being WrestleMania week, we're gonna do our Mount Rushmore of pro wrestlers. We're a football show and a sports show. We don't get into the wrestling space, so I fully expect if any of the wrestling space people ever listen to this because they see the hashtag or whatever, we're gonna get shredded on these Mount Rushmores. So in no order, I am going to, and I'm going to leave Hulk Hogan off because Hulk Hogan's also a questionable human being. So I spoke on it, especially after this run he's on right now. You got to put The Rock on there.
Got to.
And there's a chance that, we get The Rock versus Cody Rhodes in Cleveland, it sounds like, in August.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then only because he let me hold the big gold belt at the Marion County Coliseum one time, we're going to go with Sting.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Not to mention the fact that dude just retired a month ago at 60. And dude was falling through tables. And the fourth one, this is going to be a homage to Jaden. Just because so many of my memories of him as a kid, and Jaden would tell you that wrestling's the dumbest thing ever now. But number 4, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, that's yes.
We've got videos of Jaden when he was like 2, walking around going, "I think I'm cute." Yeah. So that's my 4.
That's a good 4. This was tough for me because I didn't get into wrestling until I was in like 5th grade. Shout out to Derek Bibler. He was like big time wrestler. So I used to go over and hang out with him, and he was the one that really got me into it. And then I became obsessed. So this is tough for me to do a Mount Rushmore. So before I give you the 4, there are a couple names that I have to say that were my favorite wrestlers growing up. The first one, Rey Mysterio Jr. Rey Mysterio was my guy. I've said it a million times on here. If you're short, I root for you. If you are vertically challenged, you are one of my favorite athletes. And so the mask, everything about him, the Hurricanrana, whatever it was called, like all those different things. He's still going.
And his son is now.
Oh my gosh. I was obsessed with him. I thought he was like the coolest dude ever. So shout out to Rey Mysterio. And one more shout out, rest in peace, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon. Like, I always thought he was so cool. He had a little swagger to him with the toothpick and the chains. And I'm like, man, like he's that guy. And then to see some of the pictures that came out, like after he passed away, like him, in the hood and in like tough places with, a lot of these young black kids and stuff. And I thought I thought those things were pretty cool. So, but if I had to go 4, and it's going to pain me to leave, I'm going to leave Stone Cold off. And that's so hard for me to do, to say out loud, but I'm going to rank mine because I'm weird. I don't know. Number 4 for me is The Rock. The Rock, his whole journey, from being, what was he, Rocky Maivia? Yeah. Like to see that. And then for him to be, The Rock that we know today, like to see that transformation, like he's the ultimate showman. And what he's doing right now, yelling at the camera guy, told him, keep filming. Like, this is what it's about. Like, that was pretty cool. The next one, and this was, again, shout out to Derek Bibler for this, The Undertaker. The Undertaker, I used to legitimately be scared when he would come into the ring, like with pallbearer and the caskets and stuff. Like that was like scary to me. And I love the Undertaker back when he still had like the purple on his wrist and on his like that was the gloves. That was the Undertaker that I loved.
So Undertaker caveat. I went to SummerSlam in Cleveland.
Oh, it's awesome.
This would have been like, I don't even know what year, but the main event was Shawn Michaels and Vader. But it was
Vader.
The Undertaker versus Mankind and the Boiler Room Brawl. And when the Undertaker comes into the arena, they literally turn on the air conditioning because it gets cold.
Yeah. That's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, I always thought that was cool. And then him, with Kane, when Kane came around, and that was awesome. Number 2 for me is Sting. I loved when Sting would just randomly appear in episodes, wouldn't even wrestle. And the commentators are talking like, where is he at? Where is he at? And the people in the stands are like, where's Sting? Where's Sting? Like, imagine being that popular of a person. Like, you're not even wrestling. They just want to see if you're in the rafters. like that was when Sting became one of my favorites. And then when he started carrying the baseball bat and like hitting people with that, like Sting was my guy. And then number 1, and it will always be number 1, HBK, the Heartbreak Kid. That when he went to DX, that solidified it for me. Like when he and Hunter Hearst Helms, Triple H, when they teamed up and DX and they had X-Pac and all those guys, like that solidified it for me. And then when they brought Mike Tyson to be a part of DX for that short run, I was like, this is it. Like this guy he's my favorite. He's my favorite. He forever will be my favorite wrestler of all time.
That is awesome. Yeah, it's such a cool nostalgia trip.
Yeah, it is.
Side note, they might score 200 points total, if not more, in this Iowa LSU ladies game.
Oh my God.
It is 26-21 with 3:20 to go in the first quarter.
Wow. Who's up?
Iowa.
Gotcha.
LSU just scored. So 26-23. Caitlin's doing her thing. I haven't seen her whine yet. But yeah, so we got a full week ahead. We got the men's Final Four this weekend. Go Wolfpack. Love to see the shock. Some more spring ball. Some chaos coming in our area next weekend with the eclipse.
Oh my gosh, I know.
So yeah, we got a wild week ahead. But as always, you guys, thanks for joining us. I'm sure that there were people having withdrawals today. My April Fool's joke, went over like a lead balloon, and that's all right. But I for this week's shout out, I just want to give a shout out to Ryan Day.
Yeah, there we go.
The brotherhood that you hear this dude building is something that I don't think has been there. Urban preached a brotherhood, but it was never there.
Yeah.
On the 14 squad, yes, and the 15 squad. But outside of that, so yeah, my shout out is Ryan Day. What do you got?
Yeah, no, it's a good one, man. That's a good one. That's a good one. I Ryan Day, that's a good one. The brotherhood, like being able to see it, like it's pretty cool. But I want to give a shout out to Coach Cooper. And the reason why is when he left, there are a lot of people who throw a lot of shade on Coach Cooper for his tenure as a head coach because of his record against the team up north. And I understand that as a fan base. But I love Coach Cooper because that has not fazed him one bit. He is truly a Buckeye. This man is 83 years old. He just cannot get away from the game. And he is there talking to current players, talking to current coaches, talking to recruits, like shaking hands with everybody, talking to high school coaches. Like he is in the mix. And so I just love being able to go down there and see guys like him. Obviously, last week we had Coach Tress there, but I love the fact that they feel comfortable enough to come back and really be a part of what's going on now. And Coach Cooper, man, just to have that resolve to know that there are a lot of people that didn't like the way you did things, but to still come back lets me know like how much he cared about being a Buckeye. So shout out to Coach Coop, man. That's pretty
Heck
cool
yeah.
to see. Yeah.
Well, cool deal. I think on that note, we're going to wrap it up again this week. Next week, we should be back on our regular schedule. So everybody will have their Monday morning coffee.
Yeah.
With that said, you guys have a great and safe week.
See ya.